Welcome back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Thank you guys for joining me. I've got some special guests today. I've got Ben and Morgan Bonnell with me today, and I'll let them introduce themselves here in a minute. They're based out of Houston. You'd think they'd be celebrating the Astros World Series, but kind of aren't. We'll let them talk about that. You guys may have noticed that Ben's been on the show a couple of times, though. Ben, if you go back into some of my very first episodes, Ben and I did some work together, shared his story then. Last year in July, we talked about Ben and Morgan overcoming some debt with their business. It's a great episode. And then actually in the last show we did with the State of the Agency Recruiting Space, Ben was a part of that as well. This time we've got the ultimate guest though, and she's ready. She's been prepping and she's not nervous at all. She's totally ready to go. We've got Morgan with us who's going to share more for her story today, but we're going to talk a little bit about how Ben and Morgan really focus on family and how they've built their team with that culture and that environment. But before we get those final things, make sure you check out this podcast. It's on all Apple channels, Google, Spotify, etc. And you can check it out on my YouTube channel. So if you can't tune in for the full thing right now, you can watch this killer episode there. That was a heck of an intro. Ben, what's up? Morgan, what's up? How you guys doing?
Hi.
Good, man. Thanks for having us. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. We got snow on the ground. We got an early winter here in Idaho. We got about 4 inches last night. It seems like that. Probably not even that much, but yeah, it's beautiful. It'll be better when it melts.
I was say we have different definitions of beautiful. I think it's 85 and sunny here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's one version of beautiful. I'm okay with the elements. I like the snow, so it keeps things interesting. So before we get into a lot of the fun stuff, Ben, if you can just kind of give an introduction, like let us know about your business, what you guys are all about, your team size, etc. Catch the audience up onto what's going on with the MBSG.
Sure. So we have kind of what I would describe as two different lines of business. We have Snelling, our temporary to hire, more hourly industrial staffing business. And then we also have MBSG, which is our direct hire business. Internally, we've got, I think, 12 employees or 12 recruiters now. And then externally, we've got 20 or 25 contractors. We specialize, I think we're in 5 verticals now, 5 different industries. I would describe us as more industry agnostic as a firm, but then we've got teams that are more specialized. So hopefully that gives a little bit more insight.
Awesome. And like I said, I want to take most of today's podcast actually to pick on Morgan a little bit. And so you can hear Ben's story, but Morgan, we're going to go ahead and just get into this right now for you.
All right.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm so excited to be here. Just a hit nervous. This is way outside my comfort zone, but
good. Well, I just checked and there's nobody watching live, right, guys? Great. So you're okay. But anyways, Morgan, you just made a huge career transition. You went from being a 4th grade teacher, correct?
Yes.
Now into leading the marketing department of a very successful staffing and search firm. Just tell us what motivated you to make that change.
I mean, I love teaching. I did it for 13 years. That was always kind of my plan. Like I went to school for it. I had my master's for it, and I was all in. And I just, after 13 years and seeing some of the changes in education, I knew for me to be a better wife, a better mom, more available with time and energy, that there needed to be a change of some kind. So Ben and I had some conversations, and through a lot of
it wasn't a decision you took lightly, right? We talked about it for
months.
Yeah.
There was a lot of thought, a lot of pros and cons, a lot of talk, debate, devil's advocate on both sides. Just like, is this the right decision? Especially when you never thought that there would ever be.
I used to laugh when people would be like, why doesn't Morgan work in the business? I'm like, she's never going to come work in the business.
And that was usually my response too. But I think you know when you know. And basically, I sat down and Ben's like, just make a pros and cons list. And I do applaud him because he never pushed me one way or the other. He was just the great listener. And if I'd ask him, he'd kind of just asked me back. Like he let me talk through all the different scenarios and whatnot. But basically we came down to a pros and cons list, and really the only reason I wouldn't make a change is I was scared. So I was like, let's do it.
Awesome. Here we are. A couple months later, you're on a podcast, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Did Ben tell you this was going to happen?
No,
we talked
he
about
did that part out, and that might have been a game changer. It might have just put one over. No, I'm kidding.
So without sharing too much of, your guys' private conversations and things, but like, what were some of those things that made you consider maybe teaching is the best thing for me? What was some of those things that obviously you did take the leap, but what were some of the things you were really weighing in terms of, staying in teaching or taking this new opportunity?
I mean, the wonderful thing about teaching, outside of like everything that you hear about teachers, you get to grow the next generation and all those wonderful things. I was lucky enough, our oldest is in 2nd grade. So even during the pandemic, when I was teaching online, we were still in the building, I still got to be with him. He was right down the hallway. I knew his teachers. Like he came to my classroom before and after school. I had the summers off with both boys, and not only summers, but the long breaks, your winter break, your Thanksgiving break. And I was going, that's a lot of time that is already built in to give up to go do something different.
Right.
And like, we didn't know structurally what this would look like at that time. So that was a big, like, what does that look like now? What do summers look like? Do I want to give up being able to pop in at lunch to go see Henry or whatever? So that was a big thing for me.
Yeah. Right. Now, what's been different, right? I would imagine that teaching and running a marketing department for the firm is a little bit of difference there. I mean, I know you're still dealing with probably kids, just different ages, because I know your husband well, but
I do really applaud Ben. He knows me well enough. He knows I like to be creative. I like to write. And this was not a position that was already a part of this firm. So this was really him and George, I believe, kind of sat down and said, we need this. This is a need we have. Can Morgan fill it when she comes in? And between them and their help and their training and working with you, like, we've started this process of marketing for MBSG, which has been very fun. So, awesome. And I like that I still get to be creative and artistic. It's like, yep. Just that creative piece that comes with being a teacher and solving problems and looking at it one way versus another way. I'm very grateful that I get to do that every day.
That's awesome. So far, would you say it's been the right move?
Absolutely, 100,000%.
Now, you mentioned the time with the kids and stuff like that, but like also, I know this isn't always smooth sailing. I mean, what kind of hiccups have come up for you, or what kind of challenges have you felt maybe, or has there been any of that, or has it been all pretty much a win?
It's all really been a win. I mean, I think we've worked out a schedule. Like, I'm still the one that gets to pick up the boys after school. I'm the one that stands at the bus stop. So I still feel like I have that time. And I know back when we were starting the business, being a teacher and him running the business, and at that time it was smaller. If you have young kids, they're always sick because they're in school, they're in daycare. I mean, we would be up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning going, okay, who's going in, who's staying home, and just that juggling act. And we just, for the first time ever, I remember one of our boys was sick. I think it was the first time we were supposed to record it, and it was just like, oh, this isn't as stressful as it used to be.
Yeah. Right.
Because right. I can do my job. I love being in here in the office, but really I can do it anywhere that I can.
Right.
So
right.
Any
remote flexibility.
Time of the day, yeah. So it's really given me us as a family, that flexibility to really be more available, which is really one of the biggest things that we were nervous about in the beginning.
Yeah. Awesome. And Ben, what are some of the things, I mean, what's been your perspective as she's joined on the team? I mean, I know that you're going to answer this properly,
fully scripted. I've already run it past her. I mean, at first I had my mentor, her voice in my head when she started thinking about this stuff, saying, hey, whatever the decision is, it has to be hers. And my mentor gave me that advice when she first got pregnant, when Morgan got pregnant with Henry. She was my boss at the time, my mentor, and she said, what are you guys going to do? Is she going to go back to work or is she going to stay home? And I was like, I mean, I hope she goes back to work. Like, we need that, we need that salary at the time. And she was like, oh, kind of pat me on the head, like, that's not the right answer. Whatever the decision is, it's going to be hers and it's your job to figure it out. And so when she was ready to make the change, it was just trying to, stay that way of like, hey, whatever the decision is, it was hers to make. I'll figure out the rest. And then, when she finally came to that decision, naturally we're like, well, she'll just come recruit, right? Be on the recruiting team. And then we started working through like, what if like when I'm on vacation, she's obviously going to be with me. And so now we're going to be short me and one of our recruiters, or, just little things like that. And it was, we kind of started working backwards going, okay, that's not the right role, so because recruiting's not that flexible, right?
Right.
You have to fill jobs on a daily basis. And so I started thinking more about, what does provide that level of flexibility. And I was doing all of our marketing at the time, really based on your program. And I was doing a real half-assed job of it to begin with. I wasn't that consistent because we're busy, right?
Right. Right.
So it just kind of clicked, I guess, one day. And I did ask George, our integrator, like, hey, what do you think about this? And he was like, hell yeah, why would we not do this? And so from there, it's been like gangbusters since you joined, whatever it's been, 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you kind of set that segue up for me nice there. I was going to ask you, because I know obviously people that aren't listening don't know that you guys are EO and you kind of work the EO system within the company.
EOS.
Yep. EOS. Yep. How has that helped? Because George is really the integrator. You're more of the visionary. So has that helped with, you're not the boss, so to speak, right?
Right.
Somebody else kind of that. Does that help in this situation at all, do you think? Or
yeah, I mean, it puts guardrails on things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It puts structure and organization around it. Early on, one of the things we talked about was, and I got this, I guess it kind of goes back to my mentor when I worked for her. Her daughter actually worked in the business, and she created the same kind of structure, like, hey, my daughter's not going to report to me. She's going to report to someone else, and we're going to set it up in a way. So I kind of already had, like, I had seen it done before, right? How people that were in the same household or in the same family put guardrails around how that works. And it allows for kind of both people to develop their own relationships with their coworkers without them having to develop those relationships either together or through one another. And so far, I mean, it feels good. I'm excited to show up every day. So that hasn't changed.
That's good.
Check in 6 months or something.
Oh, come on.
Morgan, do you have anything to share about that? Just about like having George and just the rest of the team and how that's been, kind of adopting and everything?
I mean, I love having George here. We've been friends for a long time, but his brain also works the same way mine does. So he's a big process guy, and Ben is the big dreamer. So sometimes talking to Ben, like we start here and we're like 8 steps down the road and I'm like, George. So I can get George on board and he puts all the processes in place. So that's very helpful. And I love my team. They're just rock stars. I mean, I may be the marketing person, but this team is the marketing team. I mean, they're constantly coming up with great ideas. I'm like, hey, I need help here. I always kind of joke around, go, I'm the new kid, #I'm new here, like help. So they're always willing to jump in and help and add ideas and value. So it's really a team effort.
But yeah, you're really just telling their story, right?
Yeah.
And the heart of it.
Yeah. Now, kind of going, elaborating a little bit about the team. It's been fun, where I've been a part of your journey for a while, Ben, watching you grow the business, add team members and things like that. But, you guys have a strategic way of doing this about how you guys have been able to add team members and what you're kind of looking for. And I know that Morgan is definitely family. You guys are obviously joined with the Ultimate Union.
Yeah, we have a contract.
But other people in your team, you view them as family, even if they aren't necessarily family. But like that's the culture that you guys, really have built over there. What was that intentional from the get-go, or is that something you guys have kind of stumbled on over the last couple of years, or really just surrounding yourselves with people that you would consider to be family?
Yeah, I mean, when we went into business for ourselves, the initial intention was driven by family. I've told that story before. Like Henry was sick one day, and I was stressed out about not going to work. I'd missed a ton of work. I was an employee of the staffing business, and I was worried, like, I'm gonna end up losing my job. Like, I'm gonna keep missing work. Like, this is gonna be a problem. And I saw this dad in like shorts and a flip flops one day walking his kid to school, and I was like, I'm never gonna be able to do that. Like, I'm never gonna have the flexibility to like be there for my family like that, doing the job that I was doing. And that was kind of like the decision came from there. Like, the only way I can be the guy I want to be as a husband and a father is if I'm going to be in business for myself. And so that's where the family piece started. Then I feel like I was just grinding for like 4 or 5 years trying to get us out of debt because we took on all that debt to go into business. And I don't know that anything was done real purposeful for 3, 4, 5 years until we really got ourselves out of debt. And then we, through my other mentor that Jeremy, I met people in EO and then learned about EOS and that system and how to stop, just trying to grind and grow with no real strategic plan, but get ourselves aligned. That was when George came on board. We started hiring based on core values instead of experience. And that's how, all those friends and family, it's not just us that's family here. We have actual family. My cousin leads our medical side. George, our integrator, I've known for 15 years, I think. She has old coworkers and friends. One person used to be our neighbor. I've told you that I used your marketing and content strategy that we learned during COVID to attract new business. I used that in my personal social media to attract new people. And I figured if I told the story of what we were doing and who we were, the right people would see it and go, what is he talking about? I'm interested in that. And
literally to the point where at the end of last year, I had other coworkers stopping me in the hallway going, "Hey, I saw Ben tagged you in this post. Tell me more about that." And I'm like, I got 3 minutes. So yeah, he was reaching a lot of people. And I know you say a lot. It's not necessarily about the interactions and the likes. People are reading it. A lot of it came from people coming up to us or a message from a friend of a friend who saw something. So it does work. It's truly amazing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I was fun when you shared that with me before we went live here, Ben, that, the digital marketing effort, it impacts really the entire business. It's not just new business. It's potential employees, the potential candidates and everything. And now Morgan gets to fully drive that ship around now. So
I was just thinking about the numbers. So we've added 8 new employees this year to our team, and every single one of them we were somehow connected to, whether it was someone who was actual family, someone who was a friend that we didn't know was looking for work, someone that was, not someone, multiple of her old coworkers. I posted recently a girl that just started today, Erin. I posted on social media weeks ago, and a friend that we had met through church, 15 years ago, texted me, was like, "Hey, I'm going to send you someone. I know someone you need to talk to." And so, like she said, it wasn't about the clicks. Probably like 3 people liked the post or something.
Right.
The right person saw it and thought of someone that thought, might be a good connection. And fast forward, whatever it's been, like 3 weeks or a month, and like here she is today. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, right? Like,
even our neighbor was at a baseball game, a little league baseball game, was like, "Hey, I was talking to so-and-so's mom and they're going to reach out." And I was like, okay. Like, it's just crazy how word spreads like that.
Now, when, somebody that might be listening to that is like, well, how qualified are these people that reach out? Like, how have you been able to, because I know a lot of recruiting firms want to go, hey, well, I want somebody who's got X amount of years experience, in the recruiting space. First question is like, did any of these people that you brought on over the last year, do they have any recruiting experience?
None of them. Not all. A couple of them in their former jobs or former career paths, may have been involved on like a hiring team, where they worked, or they may have interviewed people. Nobody comes from our actual industry. Like, no one has actual recruiting experience. Nobody.
We don't. Something that you guys prefer, so you guys get to kind of train them from the ground up.
Yeah, it's the old adage of hire the will and train the skill. So we're more focused on our core values and finding the right people, and we'll train them how to do what we do. We've got enough experience in that arena.
Well, we're very good trainers. Ben, George, Paula, and Amanda, they're constantly like teachable moments. They're constantly giving us like small little trainings on the job, like, so it's applicable in that moment and you learn right away. So we're lucky to have the 4 of them kind of readily available at all times.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
4 of them leading the way.
Leading the way.
So my experience, I owned a business with my dad. He's probably not watching right now, but hopefully not. No, but him and I had it, ran a business together for a while, very successful. But him and I, at the end of the day, we butt heads. We have a great father-son relationship, but in the working world, it wasn't the right thing. And then I've also worked with my sister, so I've got some experience. I mean, a lot of people want to avoid working with family, or want to avoid working with people that they're close with. And I guess, what would be your message to them, Ben, of like, what have you guys done strategically maybe to help with some of those potential conflicts that would come with relationships that might be a little bit too comfortable or anything like that?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing we should point out is not all of our friends and family work here. So
right.
Well, and two, it was we talked about flexibility and time with the boys. That was also another big hurdle we had to get through, is what is it going to be like working together as husband and wife? Like, now it's day and night. Like, what are those, how's that going to look?
It's just eyes wide open, right? You're transparent from the get-go, honest about what it is, what it isn't, what the guardrails are, what the rules are. And even if you think of all your friends and family, somebody might be one of your best friends in the world, someone in your family that you're really close to, you may not share the same exact core values, right? Just because you have a tight relationship with someone doesn't mean you 100% align on your core values. It may be because it's a friend that you connect with over football, or a family member that you connect with over, some other hobby of yours or something. It doesn't necessarily mean you're aligned to work together. So I think that's an important component of it, and understanding. I mean, George is one of my best friends. He literally sits, like, we sit in cubicles. I'm not in a private office. I sit out in the bullpen with everybody else. And he's on the other side of like a wall from me, but we're just really well aligned. Like, our psychological profiles align really well. I have other guys I'm really close friends with that I don't know that we'd be all right to work together.
Right.
So it's being very upfront, honest, transparent, ensuring that you have real clear ground rules on how to communicate, and then not being lazy with that shit. Like, you keep it in the guardrails, and you be purposeful with how you interact with people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you bring up there, that it's not just about finding family and friends, obviously, that there is method to the madness, which is the core values. So for those of you that are listening, I think that's the big thing, is even though they're finding the talent pool, so to speak, with people that are, in their world, they're still aligning even more strategically with people that really believe in mission and things. What are some of the values that you guys are looking for when you're hiring?
Sure. Yeah, character. So they're listed on our website, and they're probably in the wrong order. Character should be the first one. Character, and what it says after character is doing the right thing isn't situational. Full throttle effort, which I stole from my 7-year-old son. And we used to call it the gas factor, the give a shit factor, but George and Morgan vetoed me on putting that on the website. But it's the gas factor. Boldly adaptable. So we got to constantly be learning, constantly being, constantly reevaluating what we're doing, how we're doing it, and questioning ourselves so we can grow. What did we do? Character, boldly adaptable, full throttle effort. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I mean, those are the first 3 on the site, but we have 5, and we stick to them, and we make sure that, again, I think it's just about communication and transparency. And making sure that people are aligned around those values. And we use them. You hear them in our office. Like, if someone's being celebrated, that person or that action is being celebrated, being connected to a core value. And it's the same way if maybe someone's being redirected, or there's an opportunity for improvement, a core value is being used, not against that person, but against that action, right? It all kind of centers back to that. And it makes communicating a lot easier. Because now, Donnie, if you did something wrong or I did something wrong, it's not an attack from me to you or you to me. We're talking about an action and a core value. So you're not coming down on me, or I'm not coming down on you. The core value is coming down on that action. So it just makes it a lot easier to deal with, right? It takes that like direct person-to-person conflict out of it. Because, I mean, unless you're like a sociopath or something, most people don't like conflict.
Right. No, it's funny. I love the use of the core values, what you laid out. I was just thinking of my little youth Pop Warner team last year. We did some core values for the team and made it fun. And one of our things on there was relentless effort. So I can totally relate with full throttle effort. And we used to do the same thing with the boys, is we would attach the core value into the lesson we were trying to teach them, rather than kind of coming down on them hard. It's like, hey, are we giving a relentless effort on this play? So even though it's a youth sport, it's amazing how that type of an approach really works with leadership style. I think that people enjoy that, knowing what the main goal is of why we show up every single day, and how we all want to show up as a team every single day. So I think that's awesome. Morgan, what has been some of, when you're going into this whole digital marketing side with your new, angle, what are some of the things that you have found to be, challenging with that? I know that you're really kind of echoing the team's story. You're getting a lot of content from the team, but you're also still a couple months in. What are some of the things that are challenging for you?
Really just all of it at first. It was very like deer in headlights sometimes. Great teachers, but just you're totally in a different world. You're going from the education world to a business world is like, unless you've done that transition, it is just mind blowing just how the world works outside the four walls of a school building.
And we also don't have training, right? Like, we know how to train a recruiter. We hire a recruiter after recruiter. Marketing was like all in my head, and it was all from the conversations I had with you, throughout starting whenever COVID started, March of 20, I guess. And so it's like, hey, here you're starting day one as the marketing person, and the training manual's in my head.
Yeah.
And so
luckily you figured out that the training manual was also in your portal. So that's where I started. Right. So I got to rewatch a lot of those things which were very helpful. And just being able to meet with you once a week, learning the different businesses, like it's like education. If you hear a bunch of teachers talk, it sounds like they're talking a different language. Same thing in the business world, especially because we have so many different industries. We have oil and gas, but oil and gas is upstream, downstream, midstream. Who knew? I didn't. So it's just like learning those new worlds. What is the medical side? Like, what does it take? Just literally everything. Thank goodness I have a wonderful team who is easy to celebrate and easy to tell their story. So that's kind of where I try to stick.
Right.
Try to keep that personal and proof bucket going, the industry bucket. We're working on that one. That will come hopefully with experience and more knowledge of being here every day. But I'm trying. I try to listen to a couple economic things, and that's really his lane. So we're just gonna let him stay there.
You stay in his, or you stay in yours, and he'll stay in his. There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Well, that's awesome. It's been great to hear you guys, story today. And love to hear that you guys are still obviously using some of the digital things, and that you're able to kind of take that to the next level. Both you guys are selling yourself short. Ben, you've done a great job with your presence, obviously, over the years. And Morgan, you've already hit the ground running and doing some great things for the company. So I'm excited to see where this continues to go for you guys. I want to kind of close this out with, like, I think a lot of people, what are some of the tips, and you've kind of thrown them out, throughout the podcast, but just to kind of summarize maybe 3 things, like, how do you make working with family work? What do you think, if you were going to look at somebody that was looking to, bring in a spousal partner, or a son or daughter or dad or whatever, doesn't really matter what the relationship is. Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, that's broad, right? I don't know that I could give advice on, other relationships. The one I have the most experience with is here, but the first part that was scary was the financial part. I mean, if she said this 4 years ago, it'd have been a problem. That wasn't, I guess, an issue now with the growth of the business, but I think everything just comes down to communication. Like, as long as, it's like in any relationship, if there's something like small, like she took this, I told you about the cheap shot she took at me this morning.
Yeah, right.
We talked about that. No, but I think it's real. Like, if you don't communicate about everything, and you don't let like something little that bothered you, because it's like most arguments, right? By the time the argument comes up, you're not arguing about whatever it is you're arguing about. You're arguing because someone snapped finally because of something 3 weeks ago. And really making sure that the people that you're considering doing it with, and I guess looking yourself in the mirror as well, making sure that everybody at the table has the appropriate level of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence to be able to walk through that door together and to talk about, what happens if, what happens when, and flushing through that stuff, right? And
difficult conversations.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to be prepared to have difficult conversations. Fortunately, we've not had to have a lot of those yet, but they're coming. We know that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest component. I mean, if you're watching this and you're someone that's in our industry and you're a good recruiter, you know how to vet people, you know how to look at character, you know how to look at values, you know how to evaluate good fits, hopefully, if you're in this industry or you've been in it for a while. And I think people struggle to hire for themselves, even though they can struggle, or they don't struggle to hire for their clients, but they do themselves. And I think some of that plays into it, right? You're trying to find the person with the right experience, the person that comes from your recruiting world or comes from your segment or whatever it may be, as opposed to really turning that focus to, hire the will or hire the character and train the skill. What we do, you don't need to go to, get an MBA from a fancy school. You don't need to go get a technical degree. What we do is very much so trainable. That other stuff, your values and your character, that by the time you're in the working world, man, I don't know if that's trainable anymore.
Right. Morgan, what do you want to add to that?
I just hire a team that will, like, if Ben's not there, someone else will step in and help out. Like, there's been multiple times where if Ben's unavailable, George will step in. If they're both unavailable, Amanda might step in. So, like, you have a team that's willing to take care of each other and help out wherever, because every win is a team win. And I feel like our team right now feels that way. Everyone is celebrated. I mean, you should hear the applause when someone gets the celebrate email. Like, everybody's hooting and hollering like it's a baseball game. So I think just hiring that, I think character really is, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Win together and lose together.
Yep. Love it. Communication. Teamwork.
Yep.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. For those of you that are listening live, can you guys give a little love for Ben and Morgan sharing their story? We're going to give a little extra love for Morgan today for her first podcast. Okay. Morgan, funny. We had like 400 people on here live, so I was kind of lying.
That's not even funny. That's not
funny. You did good. See, people are saying, "Oh, we're watching." Very helpful. Thank you. You did a great job, Morgan. Oh. So give Morgan a little love as she's coming out here for the very first time on the Relevant Recruiter Show. Ben, thank you for appearance number 4. You currently hold the record right now.
The real MVP.
Yeah, the real MVP is Ben right now. So, but thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of your journey, allowing me to be a part of your business as an extension, and joining me and sharing your story. It's always inspiring. You guys always got good ones. Like I said before, Ben has been on the podcast 3 previous times. We got the State of the Agency Recruiting Space that we did 2 weeks ago. His story, which is their story about coming out of debt, was phenomenal. You can see that on the podcast. That one was about a little over a year old, and then one a year prior that's kind of Ben's story working with me. So again, thank you guys so much for being a part of what we've got going on here.
Thank you,
man. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Awesome. You guys can find Ben and Morgan on LinkedIn. And this is Donnie Gupton. This is another conclusion of a show of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll be back next Wednesday. I don't know who's going to be with me, or I don't know if I'm going to be doing a training, but I will be here next Wednesday. We'll see everybody then at 12 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Peace.